What's up, y'all? It's TBrown31 here. That's JaboctheGreat. Once again, we're back with the Last Word podcast and two big games to talk about from this past weekend. Of course, the AFC and NFC Championship games. We went, I went 1-1 with the picks. 0-2 for Jabok over here, But let's be honest here. The big one we're going to talk about first, we both got wrong. Ravens game, Chiefs. This one ended up completely opposite of what we thought would happen here. Obviously the winner, we both picked the Ravens, but the Ravens overall, they just never, outside that one drive, they never got much of anything going. Too many mistakes, turnovers. This is probably the absolute worst game they played all year, and it cost them. Chiefs once again go to another Super Bowl. 4 or 5 of the last 5 years. I mean, we're pretty much in the midst of a dynasty, especially if they win another one.
Yeah, it's a little rough for the AFC. It seems inevitable that the Chiefs get to this championship game, and almost inevitable that they make it to the Super Bowl afterwards. And then the one year they didn't, of course, Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl, and then they didn't win. So the AFC has been forsaken other than that one. I mean, obviously the Chiefs haven't won every one they made it to, but they're still doing pretty good. And they played a really good game here. And again, a team goes up against this Chiefs team in the playoffs and has one of their worst games of the season. We saw one of the highest scoring offenses in the Dolphins completely shut down. Tyler Bass was pretty good throughout the season, misses some crucial kicks, and they go down. And the Ravens, who had a few games here and there where they looked a little rocky, but never like a really bad game, have a bad game against this Chiefs team. And the Chiefs had a good game to go along with it. We got a good, gritty, slow victory from the Chiefs. We'll look at it on paper. We'll go through the game. This one is there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. I mean, it does pop up on the stat sheet, but it's definitely more of a analysis thing with some of the penalties in this game. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I won't make an argument that the Ravens were against the refs. I think there's some holding that could have been called on the Chiefs, but a lot of the penalties that were against the Ravens, I think, unfortunately, they earned. I'm going to start with the Chiefs here. Patrick Mahomes started flawless for a while, finished 30-39, 34-39, 241 yards, had one touchdown, no picks, only 15 rushing yards for him, but I mean, had a really, really good passing game. For a while, he connected with every pass he threw, and to go 30 for 39 is pretty good. Isaiah Pacheco, of course, is going to lead them on the ground. He had 68 rushing yards and a touchdown. Travis Kelce was all over the place. I got 116 yards and got himself a touchdown pretty early on, and had some crazy catches. There's one play where Mahomes kind of scrambled around for a little bit and then threw it, and it looked like it'd be a little too far, and all of a sudden it was like a video game thing. I don't know, it just like popped into Travis's hands and they get the first down. It was crazy. Rashee Rice, second on the team with 46 yards, so good gap between him and Kelce, but the Chiefs played well on offense. Kelce just had one of those days. George Karlaftis recovered a Lamar strip sack pretty early on, and then later on in the game, Zay Flowers would have a fumble that went into the end zone, touchback, and Trent McDuffie would get credited with the fumble recovery on that one. And then Deion Bush, to continue the mistakes for the Ravens offense, but positives for the Chiefs defense, would get a pick on Lamar towards the end of the game. That was kind of it was over at that point. The Ravens have been struggling for a little bit. Looks like they might have gotten heated up. Then the Zay Flowers fumble happens, and maybe they're going for it again. Get a little momentum, and then that pick happens, and that's pretty much it for them. So, what went wrong for the Ravens? A lot. Lamar didn't have the best game. I mean, he went 20 for 37, 272 yards, one touchdown, one pick. He led the team on the ground with 54 yards, but ultimately he didn't run really as much as he should have. And I know everyone's going to talk about that Lamar runs too much, but what's been working for this Ravens team all season is their run game, Lamar included. I mean, he's been a good passer. He passed well in this game for the most part. A lot of it was to Zay Flowers, but otherwise, I mean, he had a pretty good passing game. He just needed to elevate the run game a little bit. And overall, the Ravens needed to elevate their whole run game. Gus Edwards was second on the ground with just 20 yards. They were unusually unproductive, and that's kind of because they were unusually looked away from. John Harbaugh just didn't have them running many run plays, and I wasn't sure why they turned to be such a pass-heavy team. It's almost like they got in their heads about needing to pass more, and it didn't work out. The Ravens running room, has put up 200 yards at times. In this one, they were not able to quite get that much. They get 81, which is, just below their standards, and that's Lamar had 50, Gus had 20. Otherwise, you get 7 out of Flowers, actually, and then Justice Hill. So not an amazing situation there. After that, Zay Flowers has some rough stuff occur. We'll start with the positives, though. On 5 receptions, the rookie put up 115 yards and a touchdown in just his second career playoff game. I think he will be a special player in this league. Him and Lamar obviously have a pretty good connection. Unfortunately for Zay Flowers, he had probably one of the worst 3-play-ish or 3-minute sequences to occur to a player. He gets a big gain, then he gets called for taunting. I can say personally that I don't like the taunting penalty. I think that it's a little bit of a no fun league type of rule. However, the rule is in place, and I'm sure Zay Flowers knows the rule. So I do have to say that him standing over the defender the way he did, he had to know that was going to be a penalty. So they get penalized, they get moved back. Then he gets a big catch. It looks like he's going to erase the issue from the penalty. That's when he fumbles for the touchback. Obviously, that's going to be a big issue. And the fumble is punched out by the person he got the taunting on. So everything kind of falls in place there. And then he goes and slaps his hand on the bench and cuts it open in frustration. So not amazing. Lamar and Zay Flowers are definitely the two best players on the field for Baltimore through this game, aside from maybe some defenders. But both of them had fumbles. Both of them had some rough points with the interception as well. Lamar did have a highlight that I'm sure you've seen by now where he had the ball batted in the air, caught it, and ran for 13 yards. That was a great play. That might be the Ravens' best play of the day, unfortunately. Maybe the 30-yard dot to Zay Flowers for the touchdown. But yeah, so biggest things for this game, I think, really to me, are the fact that the Ravens kind of got penalized over and over again for they get called for roughing the passer, and I've voiced my opinion on that call on the show before, and I'm not a big fan of it. But then so I would be like, oh man, not roughing the passer, not against the coach. You can't touch Patrick Mahomes. Then they show the replay, and it'd be like, so somebody clothesline Patrick and slammed him to the ground. I'm like, oh, well, that's you can't entirely do that. And punched him in the face. It's just not going to work. The second roughing the passer, the one on Clowney, I'm not entirely sure I agreed with, but a lot of the Ravens penalties, they were just messing around. They know the rules. They shouldn't have been as aggressive as they were at some points. Some of them was just some of the flags were just a little bit of undisciplined football, something we haven't really seen from the Ravens this year. It's just a bad place for it, a bad time for it to happen. And then Baltimore's defense. I started texting Terrence, I think, immediately in the first quarter, and I was like, man, this ain't the Ravens defense that I've been watching all season.
Yeah.
They got cut up over and over again. As I said, Patrick was perfect for a while in the first and second quarter. I might not have gone to the second quarter, but for a long part of the game, he had not missed a completion. They were just getting torn apart. And Kyle Hamilton, who's been really great all season, was getting eaten up by Travis Kelce, and the announcers kept saying this is the matchup to watch. And Travis Kelce shut that matchup up really quickly. And so Kyle Hamilton was the primary defender when Kelce scored. He was also one of the people that, the last line of defense that Pacheco pushed himself past to get for the rushing touchdown. Not a great day for him. It's not a great day for the Ravens in general, but had a great season. This was just a really weird way for such a dominant team to have gone out. And I think really the defense falling apart, the looking away from the run game, and the penalties they committed just tore them apart.
Yeah, so let's just kind of get deeper into this, So you mentioned it, that first quarter, that was really about the only time it looked like it was really a game, if we're going to be honest here. First drive, really surprising though. Ravens didn't do anything. They couldn't. First pass just got a yard. Then Lamar ran just real quick, basically got nothing, and then incomplete to Aguilar. Just like that, 3-9. It's like that's not the way you wanted to come out, especially in the game at home. Everybody. I don't want to say everybody, but despite it being Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid on the other side, you and I included, we all thought this is the Ravens' time. They were going to get this one. First drive, that's not the tone you want to set, especially when the other side, they come out, go all the way down the field. Kind of these, not super quick Chiefs drives, but, these drives where they go 70, 80 yards in a few minutes, not like the Bills did against them where their drives were much longer. Chiefs got down the field pretty quick, really efficient. I texted you during the game. It's like, hey, these receivers are sure catching the ball now. It's amazing. We were talking about these issues all season, but this game, last game, and then even the Dolphins game, in the freezing weather, really no issues catching the ball for the most part, some drops here and there. I know everybody's going to say maybe because Kadarius Toney was out. Maybe. But, it might have been that they wouldn't have targeted him much anyway. And he seems to think that he was, just straight up benched, really, rather than Ashley being injured, of course, that's what he feels. Either way, Chiefs offense, receivers especially, they stepped up. Like they didn't have those issues that they had been having all season. So their first two drives, to end out that first quarter into the second quarter, they were like really good. I mean, and the second one was much longer. Still, they ran the ball, for the most part, pretty well. Like not amazing. Again, like 2.8 yards from rush. By the end of it, 5.1 for the Ravens. So more yardage at the end, but per calorie, I guess it wasn't much. But they were able to run the ball at some points. Travis Kelce looked like Travis Kelce early on. Mahomes looked like Mahomes early on. They got down the field pretty quickly. And outside of that one drive for the Ravens in the first quarter, where Lamar had that crazy touchdown to save Flowers. I mean, he's about to get tackled and everything. And it's just like, oh, here we go. This is Lamar magic right here. This type of stuff we see Patrick Mahomes do a lot of times too. Gets a touchdown there. Like that was it. And, going into the second, where things kind of start to spiral for, both teams really, they just, the Ravens especially, they just never look like themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're watching the game here at my place, and after the first drive for sure, we're like, oh man, like that's not the Ravens you want to see. Chiefs cut them up, scored pretty quickly, and then the Ravens answered though, and I was thinking that we had a little bit more going on. Chiefs go up, and I think this is what I'm expecting. Get into the second quarter, obviously. Then the Chiefs have just scored. The Ravens kind of answer, and we got ourselves a ball game, and then they fumble, and that strip sack is pretty rough. Lamar gets it punched from behind from Omanihu, and then Kalaf just picks it up, and that's a Chiefs drive. Then they turn it over on downs though, and as the second half is kind of winding down, it looks like the Ravens can try to make something happen, but they go 5 and out, and they go 3 and out after the Chiefs go 3 and out. And this is at this point, my roommate and I kept saying like, the Ravens defense is here. They've shown back up, but the Ravens offense has got to get going. Right, the Ravens defense has now held them onto a turnover on downs, punt, a 3 and out where they got 0 yards as well, which is really hard to do against a Kansas City team. When you're in halftime, Ravens just need to get something on the board, and their defense is starting to show up. But then they Chiefs get the field goal, make it 17-7 after another Ravens 3 and out, and of course that's about it. There's like 4 seconds left on the clock, and the Ravens to kind of kneel it out to wait till after halftime, and then it looks really bad because already that the Chiefs are going to get the ball to start the second half, and this is where we get into the eventful but uneventful part of the football game, as we kind of get into the third quarter where nothing positive happens at all for either team unless you're the Chiefs defense, I guess. I mean, the Ravens defense is holding the Chiefs down. The Chiefs actually don't score at all in the second half. They put up all 17 in the first half. Into the third quarter, they go punt, punt, punt. That's all they do. The whole second half is punt. So it's interesting from that standpoint to see like, man, nothing is really happening here. And aside from some penalties and stuff and some messed up plays here and there, nothing really is happening. The Chiefs go 3 and out, and the Ravens go 3 and out, and you get a 1 yard run finally from Gus Edwards. I mean, he had some better runs, but they look to him. Then they immediately go, they go to give it to Zay Flowers, and there's an incomplete pass to Flowers, and that's it. They hold the Chiefs to a punt. It's an 8 play drive this time. Then they get something kind of going, and then it doesn't go again. They pass to Edwards, get a big play. Start to look like they're heating up, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they stumble. Lamar gets sacked for a loss of 8 yards, and then we're looking at another punt, and they force the Chiefs to punt again. And then here's where the big day kicks in for Zay Flowers. You get a huge 54-yard completion to Flowers, and then he gets flagged for taunting. Then they get an incomplete pass to Justice Hill. Then they get 14-yard pass to Flowers. It looks like he's heating up. Bateman gets a little bit, gets 2 yards, and then they take a strike to the end zone. Not really, they can strike to Flowers. He takes it to the end zone, and then Trent McDuffie is gonna handle that pretty quickly, punch it out. It's just a Snead punches it out. Sorry, and Trent McDuffie will recover it, and this is like right as the fourth quarter starts. So the taunting penalty is just before the third. By this point, we have started the fourth quarter, and Lamar. One of the first thing of the fourth quarter is the Zay Flowers fumble out of the end zone for a touchback. And at this point, it's 17-7. These two offenses haven't done anything all half, and Zay Flowers is finally Zay and Lamar were getting heated up. Aside from some issues here, and this was a quick drive too. I mean, they were moving because of that 54-yard play, and once this one showed up, I'm kind of going, yeah, this might be it. The Ravens might not have this. Just every time something seemed like it would go well, as soon as the Ravens got a little bit of a rhythm on every single drive, they lost it, and usually in horrible fashion. And this one, this was probably the worst way they could have lost that rhythm. They give it back to the Chiefs. Not only that, but they give it to them at the 25. The Chiefs would end up punting anyway, but I mean they're able to take up 4 minutes of clock, move down the field a little bit, make the punt a little deeper at the very least. And yeah, so I'll turn it back to you before we really get into the end of the fourth quarter as things really get out of hand for the Ravens. Because even though this drive happens, this fumble happens, the Ravens really technically weren't dead yet. I mean, it's 17-7. You need 10 points. There's not a lot of time. I mean, you got a whole fourth quarter left. But the way this game has been played, it feels like there's not a lot of time left. But truthfully, they weren't dead yet. So.
Yeah, like let's just back up. Look at these last two quarters. Just recap. It's like even though the Ravens again they were only down, at the beginning of the second quarter, they only down 14-7. So it wasn't like the absolute end of the world. It was tied after the first, but that's kind of where things obviously started going awry for him. You mentioned that fumble for Lamar, like obviously, I mean that just kind of happens. Like that's if you're going for a pass, you can get hit from where you can't see your blind side. I mean that just happens. And my biggest pet peeve, we're going to talk about going forward on fourth down in this next video with the Lions, but I understand like the type of game it was, and at that point, again, you would think that the Ravens are. We haven't seen the worst of the Ravens yet at this point. Like they had the fumble, but the drive before that they scored. So I understand like why you want to keep that going and go for it on a fourth down. Maybe they should have looked at the replay for Travis Kelce getting that catch on third down, but it would have been at least worth a look, but they didn't. In my opinion, like I didn't like it. Like if you're gonna get a turnover in your opponent's territory, you got to at least come over your points. Like it's kind of just like last week with the failed fake punt for the Bills. They get that in Bills territory, and then obviously that they just phoned out the back of the end zone with Cole Hardman, but still, it's the same kind of scenario. You get a turnover in your opponent's territory, you got to score. So that that definitely felt like a huge win for the Ravens because if they had scored there, I think that probably would have already been done right there. But like you mentioned, neither team really did much for the rest of the second until the Chiefs scored, and again, nothing happened in the third quarter basically until the beginning of the fourth with that fumble. So that drive, like you said, it was a good drive. I mean, they got down pretty fast. Obviously they had that taunting penalty that moved them back before they switched sides. Like, yeah, it is a penalty, but like, if Zay Flowers had like walked 2 steps over and done the same thing and not done it in the direction of L'Jarius Sneed, like it wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have called it. I think that the taunting is just when it's directed, at a player. And obviously standing right over the guy like that and then throwing down the ball like that, they're going to flag you. So, you can bring up the Chiefs drive, right, before that, when they were able to go all the way down because of 2 Ravens penalties, guys getting into it with Travis Kelce, and then they go back up all the way down the field, and then they get 2 holding penalties right in a row. So it's like, you mentioned it, they could have called holding penalties. Well, they called 2 right there, and that pretty much screwed them on that drive. And, at the end of it, all they got was a field goal, which not the end of the world, but they definitely could have. They had a touchdown that was brought back on that play. So, the penalties thing, like obviously, it was still skewed towards the Chiefs, but the Ravens did commit down penalties. So I'm not going to act like this wasn't a situation like this game, last game, even the Dolphins game. Like we've seen games where the Chiefs have basically become the new Patriots with getting the flags, right? So this wasn't really one of them. Like again, it was skewed towards the Chiefs, but it wouldn't. I wouldn't put that one on the refs. So when you get down to past the taunting to the fumble, yeah, it probably is ironic that Sneeze ended up forcing that fumble. But now that was really the last opportunity, to be honest with you, because even let's say Lamar doesn't throw a pick, like a horrible pick, intended for Isaiah Likely. I know Likely threw his hand up to say throw it to me, but two more guys are also converging on him when there's already one guy on him. So three guys right there, like that's Lamar can't throw that. So even if he gets a touchdown there, like you might be able to keep stopping the Chiefs offense, I should say, on defense, like you have been the whole drive, and or should say the whole half, but that's not a guarantee. But I feel like this right here, because at least if it's 17-14, it's right at the beginning of the fourth quarter. You're only down 3. You still play defense the way you had been in the second half. I mean, the Chiefs offense in the second had like 70 yards or something. Like they basically got nothing. Outside of that big play at the end to MVS. So the main thing, is to kind of just put it in the box, put a bow on it. Ravens defense early on put them in a hole, but was able to basically keep them in the game at the end of it. Whereas on the flip side, the offense, not nearly as good as it had been all year, especially the running game was basically non-existent. Like, we talk about quarterbacks leading the team in rushing. That wouldn't be an issue because Lamar does it anyway. But in a game where he only gets like 50-ish, like it's not a good sign. And just overall, I don't want to say they underestimated the Chiefs, but that's just what it looked like. Like they did not come out to play the way that they should have, and both sides of the ball were culpable in this one. I mean, you would think that the as good as the Chiefs defense has been this year, you would think that the Ravens offense would be capable of more than what they put out. Flip side, Ravens defense early on, those first 2 touchdown drives, I mean, basically zero resistance. You're supposed to be the best defense in the league. Outside of you and Cleveland obviously were up there the whole year. Basically did nothing on defense. So this one, just to wrap it up, it's like I hate to say, oh, Lamar choked and this and all that, but I mean, when you get to this point where it's just every single time you get to the playoffs, like you might even win one game, and then you have one of your worst performances of the season, something's obviously wrong. So I don't know if it's a mental thing for him. I don't know. Like even again, besides that one drive where they got a touchdown, and then some of the later drives where they were able to get down but made mistakes at the end, Ravens team didn't look like they came to really play. So that's their own fault because it's the AFC Championship game, first Super Bowl appearance they're looking for in 10 years, and you come out like that, you come out flat for the most part. I there's nothing really else to say. Chiefs defense played a great game. First half, Chiefs offense played a great game. So I'm not going to take any credit away from them. But end of the day, Ravens, they simply didn't play well enough.